Table manners is something that will serve you always. It's like learning how to walk. You will make use of it at all times. And a little knowledge of table etiquette will go a long way, since you will comfortably be during the meal. Your table manners will also tell a lot about yourself. We see that more and more companies take a potential employee on an interview in restaurants. When somebody knows how to behave at the table, it will not be noticed. But if they have bad table manners, it will show quickly. In essence, table manners are very easy. You follow the lead of the host or hostess. When they invite you to the table, you act upon it. A good host will announce a few minutes beforehand that dinner will be served. And that gives you the opportunity, the guests, to go wash their hands, which is etiquette language for visiting the bathroom. A good rule of thumb is actually that you don't leave the table or postpone it as long as you can. Another tip I can give you is that the ladies go touch up their makeup, but minimize on the lipstick, since lipstick on a glass is not considered very convenient. When the lady of the house precedes the guests, she will point who sits where, and maybe there will be name cards on the table. And of course, the gentleman should let the ladies be seated first. And if you want to be a real gentleman, you would assist the ladies with the chair. When you sit down as a lady, you put your hand back to the left, or maybe just under the chair. In some fancy restaurants, you will get a stool or a table to put your hand back on. It's very fancy. When you sit at the table, we would advise you to sit on the front of the chair. That will actually force you to sit up straight and not lean back, because you can see what happens. It looks more relaxed. And in a social situation, like amongst friends, that is fine. But in a formal or business situation, you might want to sit up straight and show that you have table manners. You probably know not to put your elbows on the table, but what do you do with your hands? There is not really a clear rule on this. In the English etiquette, they put it on their lap. In the French, they would fold their hands like this and put it on the table. So that's with everything in etiquette. Sometimes there are different opinions on things. Let's start with the napkin. This can be in many folds and shapes. The first thing you do when you sit down at the table is take the napkin and put it into your lap. The main rule is that when you take a napkin and you put it on your lap, it will never touch the table again during the whole meal. But we will come to that later. You would also not take the napkin before the host or the hostess would take that napkin. Throughout the whole dinner, it's a good idea to follow the lead of the host. You shouldn't drink before the host. You shouldn't eat before the host. You just follow their example. The correct way to put the napkin on your lap is fold it. There is a bit of discussion in the etiquette literature if you should actually fold it like this, or rather like this. We would advise to do it like this, since the tip will create a gravity point and it will stay between your knees much easier. If you do it like this, in the rectangular form, it might slide off your lap much quicker. Never put your napkin into your shirt or around your neck. That is deemed very inappropriate. And should you leave the table, which you actually have to avoid, where do you place the napkin? What do you do with the napkin? Well, that depends on the chair. If you have a chair who has no armrests, like this one, you would leave the napkin on the seat of the chair. If it does have an armrest, you would leave it on the left armrest, just like this. You would never leave it at the back of the chair. The simple rule is once you take a napkin off the table, it doesn't touch the table again until the end of the meal. And actually, the same goes for cutlery, but we will come to that later. When you are finished, never fold your napkin to the original state, because that means that you want to be invited again, and obviously that is rude. You should leave it more like this, and you leave it to the left side of the original table setting. Never put it to the right, because that means you want to stay the night, although it might come in handy on a date, for example. The use of the napkin is to clean the corners of the mouth, not to wipe it. Also, the inside of the napkin is the one you use. So you dab the corners, you close it again, and put it again on your lap, because that will also not show the stains on the napkins and will not touch your clothing. So the stains will not come in contact with your trousers, for example. Now let's move on to the actual eating of the food. If you have a lot of cutlery like this, and you might be confused, the golden rule is to eat from the outside to the inside. This is the correct way how to hold your fork, and this is the correct way how to hold your knife. You would actually never hold it like a pen. You also bring the fork to your mouth, not your mouth to the fork. And obviously you would never use a knife to bring to your mouth as well. It only is there to cut things and to assist to put things onto the fork. Try also to eat at a pace and watch everyone at the table, so you are not finished too quickly or too slowly. Pay attention to the conversations at the table and to the people around you, especially the host and hostess. Make as little noise as you can and do not point with your cutlery. It is wiser to take a break from eating, maybe to drink, maybe to have a conversation. And if you want to pause, the only correct way to put your cutlery is like this. What we see is that a lot of people do it like this, but that is not correct.
Now let's say you're eating soup and there's just a little bit left in your plate. How do you go about it? Well, if this is the plate, you should tilt it, but you should tilt it away from you so that the leftover soup is going towards the front. Then you take your spoon and you go towards the front of the plate, where you scoop up actually the soup and eat it. That's the correct etiquette.
If there's something you don't like during the dinner, you should at least try it. Put it to the side so that the plate seems as empty as possible. And when you are done eating, you put your cutlery parallel in your plate. Might be at 3 o'clock, 4 or 6 o'clock. This can differ from culture to culture. Just watch the people at the table. Now a word on bread, butter and bread plates. The correct way to use the butter knife, which is this one, not the bread knife, since bread is never to be cut but to be broken, is to ask for the butter. Don't reach too far over the table to get the butter at any cost. To avoid asking for the butter every time, you would take a sufficient amount of butter to put on your bread plate for the entire bread roll. You put it on your bread plate, break a piece of bread off, and butter that piece you are going to eat. This way, you will make sure that you have enough butter and not need to disturb the other guests every time. When serving wine, you have to look at the glasses. Glasses like this can hold quite a bit of wine, so don't serve too much. 1/3, for example, or even less, is more than enough. The wine can develop in the glass and it reduces the risks of people spilling wine if the glass should be too full. Now, the right way to hold a glass is like this or like this. Never use your pinky when you drink because that is considered very rude. When you drink coffee, always take out the spoon out of the cup. Place it parallel to the handle of the cup. When you are finished with the meal finally, do not forget to compliment the chef. If this is an outside caterer or an in-house chef or even the lady of the house, always compliment on the food.